Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Statistics show that approximately 80% of all aviation mishaps can be attributed to human error. This growing concern prompted the FAA, along with a couple of other entrepreneurs, to come up with the Dirty Dozen in aviation maintenance. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more in depth with the Dirty Dozen. I'm going to give you a personal example of whenever I succumbed to a couple of these human factors. And we're also going to talk about a couple of the worst incidences that's ever happened in aviation history. Nearly everyone who's been involved in aviation maintenance has heard of the Japan Airlines Flight 123. It took off from Tokyo International Airport on Monday, August 12, 1985, and about 12 minutes into flight, the rear pressurization bulkhead failed, severing several hydraulic lines. The loss of hydraulic power rendered the pilots unable to maneuver or even control the aircraft at all, and it eventually crashed about 60 miles from its takeoff point. The crash killed all 15 crew members and 505 out of the 509 passengers on board. The ensuing investigation showed that the failure of the rear bulkhead was due to a faulty repair that happened several years earlier in 1978. The same aircraft was involved in a mishap where the tail of the aircraft hit the runway on landing, causing a stress fracture in the rear bulkhead. The engineers came up with a design or a repair to fix the crack, where they install a doubler or a patch over the stress fracture with 3 rows of rivets around it to hold a doubler onto the actual bulkhead. Well, the maintainers came up with a quicker way to cover the stress fracture by installing 2 separate doublers, one with 2 rows of rivets and then the second doubler with just 1 row of rivets. Their repair was eventually accepted by the engineers, but was only meant to last no more than 10,000 pressurizations or flights before the repair had to be accomplished again. Well, on this day, August 12th, that aircraft underwent its 12,318th pressurization. The second incident I want to talk to you about happened at the Chicago O'Hare Airport, and behind the September 11th attacks is the deadliest crash that's ever happened on U.S. soil. The American Airlines Flight 191 took off from the Chicago O'Hare Airport, and shortly after its wheels left the ground, the left engine separated from the left wing and actually flipped over on top of the wing, damaging several slats and flaps of the aircraft. And the obvious loss of the engine caused the jet to roll about 90 degrees to its left and ended up crashing several hundred yards off the end of the runway. This crash killed 258 passengers and 13 crew members. The investigation that followed showed that the engine separation was due to some unauthorized maintenance procedures that happened several weeks earlier whenever the aircraft was undergoing major overhaul. They had to inspect the pylon, which is a structure that holds the engine to the wing of the aircraft, and the maintenance procedures calls to remove the engine and then remove the pylon, perform your inspection and maintenance, and then install the pylon and then the engine. Well, to save time, the maintainers decided to leave the engine attached and hold it up with a forklift, and then separate the pylon from the actual wing and bring the pylon and the engine down as one whole unit. And whenever they installed it, they damaged some of the structure between the pylon and the wing, but they wasn't able to tell because of the engine was there blocking a lot of the points of view that they would need to see the damage. So with these major accidents happening, the FAA and a couple other people came up with the Dirty Dozen of aviation maintenance. I'm going to just run through the list of them. Their complacency, which a lot of people, like myself, um, Dave and Terry, we all seem to get a little complacent at our jobs every now and then. Distractions, fatigue, which everybody knows that, you know, as your day goes on and the more tired you get, the quality of your work tends to decrease. The norms, which is, you know, if we've been doing this thing this one way for several years, why would we want to change it and do it the right way? Pressure, as in, you know, we got to get the jet off on time or we got to meet certain deadlines. Stress can be from stress at work, from pressure, or it could also be stress that you brought home from your personal life or personal incidents or something that you're trying to deal with right now. Lack of assertiveness, which obviously the Japan Airline Flight 123, everyone knew that it should have been, that the repair should have been replaced or reaccomplished after 10,000 pressurizations, but no one said anything until obviously after it crashed over 12,000 pressurizations. Lack of awareness, lack of communication, lack of resources, lack of teamwork, and lack of knowledge, which is the big reason why my incident actually happened. I was a C-17 engine mechanic. I was only on the jet for a couple months working on it, and I was dispatched out to troubleshoot and fix a thrust reverse system on one of the engines. So the system was deactivated before I came on shift, and whenever I arrived, I thought that I knew how to reactivate the system, but whenever you deactivate the thrust reverser system, you bolt the cowlings down to keep them from moving or sliding back to deflect airflow whenever it's flying. So me not knowing that the bolts were installed or not looking at the technical manual because I thought that I knew how to operate this system, I went upstairs, went into the cockpit and moved the throttle back to activate the system and to move the cowlings back with hydraulic pressure. So I sent about 4,000 psi of hydraulic pressure to the actuators and forced the cowlings back, tearing 6 holes and ripping through the skin of the cowlings. And it ultimately, the cowlings, both cowlings cost about $1 million each. So I ultimately caused about $2 million worth of damage to this one engine, and it was just because of my lack of knowledge that the incident happened. So, you know, in the aviation community, there are plenty of ways to ruin your career, your life, or even someone else's. You know, upwards of 500 people lives are in your hand whenever you touch an engine. The dirty dozen in aviation maintenance was adopted to reduce the amount of accidents and casualties placed on the engineers or the pilots and especially the maintainers. So please keep this in mind if you ever do pursue a career in aviation maintenance or even in the aviation community. It could help everyone out a lot. Thank you for your time. I wonder if they could tell that I did that with no pants on. Probably not. Let me see.